Welcome to this week's episode of No Idea Yet. Quick disclaimer for the beginning of this episode: we don't know anything about this. No, on a serious note, we nothing we say can be taken as financial advice. Please, go out, do your own research. There's plenty to be learnt over there. You'll probably come away from this one with more questions than answers, but we hope you enjoy regardless. Welcome to episode 8 of No Idea Yet. With me today we have Johnny.
Hello.
And Freddie.
Hello.
And they'll be finding out live on this episode, funny enough, which you already know because you read the title, but it is on Bitcoin.
Oh, God damn it.
So yeah, it's vaguely topical at the moment. Probably won't be, well, maybe still will be by the time this comes out. But yeah. So we're going to touch on that in general for a bit. There's some funny stories which I've found recently, quite amusing. And then just, the sort of future of it. Just initial thoughts on it, really. Like, what do you...
Hang on. Wait, are you going to Bitcoin or all cryptocurrencies?
I was going to dabble in some other ones, yeah. But obviously Bitcoin is a nice one to
do I know one of your stories that you had of there's a guy with like $200 million in Bitcoin and he forgot his password and he's got 10 attempts and he's got like 2
Yes,
left.
that was exactly the one I was going to look at. It's so funny.
I can't imagine. There's some like multi-million out there.
Honestly, it should be a game show. Just record like his face when he's trying to guess a password that's worth like 200 million. It's insane, yeah.
Do you like equity rich and cash poor? It's like that, but your equity is like worthless. It's like it's not a house. It's not anything. It's just like somewhere there's 200 million with your name on it.
Crazy, yeah.
That is gutting. Well, I don't know much about Bitcoin specifically. It's
obviously, for you can branch out.
But I mean, I saw literally. So I was in London recently, and on the side of a bus it says, "When you see Bitcoin on the side of a bus, it's time to start investing." Now, my knowledge of investing is like amazing.
Yeah, I think by the time it's on the side of a bus, you're a little bit late to the party. Actually.
Yeah, I kind of think
maybe.
Isn't it that you buy when it's low, either dropping if you think it's going to come back up, or if you think it's going to be good in the future, you buy. And this kind of seems like you're kind of at your peak, maybe Bitcoin.
Well, stocks famously only go up, and as does Bitcoin. So
I feel it's one of those things of where it's value for the sake of value. So it's like you've got a stock or like a share in something, but it's not usually a share in a company or something which holds actual value, and therefore the shares in that company have value in their own right. And I think, is it just cryptocurrencies effectively it's value for the sake of value? It's like somebody's just given a value to something.
It's a currency it's a currency rather than a share. So it will be it's more so it's value because the same reason that money has value, because it's something that we have trust in each other that will fulfill whatever based on it. So I think obviously it's still quite I think there's a lot of sort of false information around about it, which I think will be one thing we can kind of look into and then go over next week. But I said the whole no idea yet vibe. There's a lot I don't know about it. There's a lot that
So can I oh, go on. No, I was gonna say, can I just throw out there what I think I know? Because this is what I like about this podcast is that I picture it as you just join a conversation at a party or a bar or somewhere, and you realize everyone's there talking about XYZ. Today it's Bitcoin, and you feel suddenly that you've got to throw in whatever it is that you know, and you're hoping.
Oh, we're all going to judge you on it, and everyone listening is going to judge you so hard.
I hope something sticks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're.
So my knowledge so far, I think, is cryptocurrencies, mainly with Bitcoin, is that there's a whole problem with we balance everything in the world money-wise against the gold standard, but unfortunately, there's more money than gold, right? So some clever people figured out like a digital way of doing it was to have these, let's say, coins, Bitcoins, where each one was unique, and whenever you transferred it, it added on to the name of it. So let's say it's called Freddie. I transfer it to Johnny, and it says Freddie Johnny. And then you transfer it, goes Freddie Johnny Alistair. And like, as far as I know, like you add data to the back of it, so it's always unique. It's always the coin is
the blockchain, right? Yeah.
Right. And somehow this is all encrypted magically, and so people can't guess it. And also on top of all this, you make new ones by mining them, and that's basically where you use your computer's power to create one somehow out of thin air, but it makes it, I guess it's kind of, it conserves the problem with energy. Like, you can't create something from nothing because you use electricity to do it. But I think that's about as far as I've got knowledge wise. You make the thing, and then it's transferable. If you lose one, you've lost it forever, and it can be used very, very, very securely, because it's like, the way it's encrypted is that when you send it to someone, you send some sort of passcode key that allows them to open the thing that you've just sent them, but no one could interfere with it on the way. And I don't know if any of that has just made sense, but that's what I think I know. Okay.
That's solid. That's solid. I said, yeah. Johnny, do you want to add anything to that?
4 years ago, I listened to a Radio Lab podcast about
4 years ago, I bought £1,000 of the Bitcoin. Thought that would be a good time to mention it.
I remember
got my password.
It was a podcast about somebody who'd made a new cryptocurrency and how they went about doing it. Obviously, like, you say if there's somebody to make Bitcoin somewhere out there as a password and somebody could find it and hack into it or whatever. And it was their effort to try making a completely unhackable, completely pure kind of cryptocurrency. And the way they did it was mad. They made sure there was like everything they did, they traveled interstate to make sure no one was able to follow them or see wherever they were going. Then when they did it, they had a computer and they turned off the monitor, and then they had this random generator, and no one there was allowed to look at it. And it was like this big, almost like a ceremony, like a ritual, to make sure there's this way, which is completely random. There's no way anyone could ever learn how it happened, because the people who did it didn't know how it happened. So all I know other than this, obviously, is like Radio Lab kind of end up advertising this type of cryptocurrency. I wonder if they took stock in it. I know that. I can't remember for the life of me. It was 4 years ago, but Radio Lab was somewhere.
There's like Bitcoin BitLite. There's like another random light one. There's loads. There's loads. Yeah.
There are so many now that
I guess people want that original Bitcoin, invest in something small, and it comes huge. But yeah, I just remember seeing. Oh wow, Alistair scrolling past loads of cryptocurrency on his phone.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking something with mining is like you need some mad processor on your computer. Like people would have these ridiculous computer setups to mine Bitcoin. But then I saw an advert on a game I was playing on my phone, and it said like mine Bitcoin from your phone. And I was like, so is that like NASA putting people into space in the 60s with less computing power than their phone? That somehow what used to need a huge computer
I think
Bitcoin? Or is that
I think this is something that I definitely want to go away and research more, because obviously now I'm actually I'm hosting it, so maybe I should know this. But as far as I understand, the actual mining process is more about the blockchain itself and keeping track of that. And that's it. The word mining is quite misleading, I think, in terms of what they're actually doing. It's not like they're just literally trying to find them, they're hidden somewhere. It's more like because I think there's like I say again, I need to go over this. There's a thing called the halvening, which is basically where basically three people talk about Bitcoin, don't really know much about it for the first half of this episode. But the halvening is where they basically halve the value of Bitcoin and it shoots it up. And then I think the people who mine it like in inverted commas, they're basically just running the blockchain. So if there are multiple transactions, it's the one that they go with as the correct one is the one with the most data on the blockchain. So I think that's kind of how the processing power comes into it. I think I'm getting a little bit confusing myself with this a little bit, but
question mark on even what blockchain is. I'm going to write that down.
Thank you. Also, like
questions are so what is Bitcoin? How does it work? What is the blockchain? And there's a funny story about it.
I like that. It's like the blockchain and the halvening, and I'm like, these are words I've not heard before. To be honest, I know that they are words.
Because that's the thing I don't get, right? That I'm going to have to look up. If you can just mine it potentially forever, it has to.
There is the hard cap on it is what gives them value. In the same way that there is only so much gold in the world, and there will only ever be that much gold in the world. So yeah.
So I'll put my show notes. What is Bitcoin? And I like to imagine that's like one of the most popular searches on Google of what is Bitcoin.
I think recently, with how much it's been in the news lately, I think for sure. But obviously, so we can touch quickly on obviously again. It's probably only pretty old news by the time this airs, but the whole Elon Musk basically using a lot of Tesla's available funds to capital to buy into Bitcoin, and then I think you will actually be able to pay for Teslas in Bitcoin soon. I think obviously he is very forward thinking and very kind of, I can't see there being any huge crash with Bitcoin in terms of, the more companies that do this, obviously the more investment they have into it.
Yeah.
I mean,
money's only got worth because society says it does, right?
Of course.
You hold those coins, you're like, yeah, but it's coins, I've got it. But there's Bitcoin's numbers on a screen. What does that mean? Well, I mean, mate, look at your credit card. It's just literally just tied to numbers in an account somewhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually mean anything. Do you think it's surely this is just an actual normal step in the future of economics?
Oh, for sure. There's no centralized bank and everything, which is great. It's a good thing. So yeah.
But I always think of like, when you look at, you always think when you got change in your pocket isn't worth as much as notes in your pocket. But when you look at a note, it says, what is it, like a promise the bearer £5, and it's effectively an IOU on paper. Really, that's what I'm saying. This is meant to represent it.
I said it's just trust between two people. That's all. Like I said, we can. Like I think we're quite fun to touch on the sort of foundations of money and how it actually came about. And it's because it's a, I don't know,
like the
makes the world go around.
Rick and Morty episode where it's all he does is change the value of 1 to 0, and it's like, wait, I'll do it if you pay me money. Just
exactly. Yeah.
Well, see, this has made me have a little funky thing as you guys are talking about exchange rates, right? Because you just said it's fixed, and it made me think, hang on a second, is it so like pound to euro, for example, is a classically important thing to us all right now. Brexit. So, like, if, for example, let's say it's not by countries in the future, it's not like, oh, you guys have Russian bitcoins and you guys have Botswanan bitcoins. Maybe it was like societies, like groups of people across the world. So I don't even know what you call it. Like I'm going to go down a super like American route here. So you got the jocks around the world, like the Chinese jocks, and you got the Venezuelan jocks. They all use jock coin. Got, like, the D&D players of the world, and like the Japanese D&D players, they have D&D coin or something. Like, and then would you have an exchange rate between those two Bitcoin, those two types of cryptocurrency? God, I don't even know. Like, or would you just have one unique currency, and everyone has it's just units? It's just like in a sci-fi, everyone just pays in credits or something.
Yeah.
And it's just that's it.
Yeah. Again, I mean, obviously the more tangible thing you can see in terms of a direction it's going in the society that we can actually sort of see is obviously the kind of move away from cash, which I think the whole pandemic has massively pushed. But I mean, China obviously, like I said, when I was living there, they had a very much almost cashless society in terms of you could function very well without cash. People obviously still had it, people used it all the time, but you could do everything without cash. So yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about it? Just as a little side note, what a cashless society? Do you think that would be a good thing, bad thing? I've seen obviously arguments for both sides of that.
I think the really main thing it's negatively impacts is just older generation, really. Because you could even say like, oh, what about kids when they want to go to the shop? And I guess they just have a little card which has credit on it from the parents. And it's like,
slightly smaller for their tiny child.
Like, hey, I just credit your card. There you go. There's your pocket money. It could even be like a thing of, like In Time, the film where they have hours. So you just hold
exchange time for money, but other than that is basically
yeah. So you just hold your card, and there you go, and you say like, give £10, tap card, something like that. 10 credits.
Such a good concept of a film that was so badly like done.
I really like that film. I've got nothing to complain.
It could have been done so much better.
I like that. Yeah, I could. Yeah, but it was a good step. It's like Jumper. It's just. I'm just glad that somebody had a great idea and it came to fruition. Even if it could have been done better, I'm just glad they made it.
Well, okay. So back to the original point, though.
Yeah.
The problem I had in my previous jobs is that people don't tip when it's because you just put how much is it? It's this. So you tap your card and you paid this, right? There's no kind of like, I'll just leave you the change kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a big negative or a small negative. Maybe that's because
I think that's the very very like cusp of the world that you're getting into there. Basically, so obviously asking your waiter, so you declare your tips, right, for tax purposes? Oh, of course, who doesn't? Yeah. So, but obviously that is the very sort of the fringes of the criminal world, because obviously because of that saying, the criminal world would be hit very very hard if everything became digitized. It would become a very difficult. I don't, not that I'm lamenting this at all. I don't think that'd be a bad thing, but it would be a fact. Obviously, society would,
Well,
So obviously, I'm sure there would be, but there would be sort of, because obviously, Bitcoin's history actually has, most people who would be buying Bitcoin 5-10 years ago were to do dodgy things with it, because obviously it was it was kind of a way of paying for things on the dark web and all the rest of that. So I think, obviously, I'm sure criminals will, find a way around these problems. But yeah, in terms of a cashless society, that's something that springs to mind.
There was a show called Riviera. I didn't actually watch all of it, but I loved the premise, and then not enough that I liked the show though. And it was the idea of that art is something which isn't really taxable, and it's something which has no actual value. So effectively, how people are being able to pay each other with art is like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to pay 20 million for this piece of artwork. It's like, yeah, but it's not worth that. No, I chose how much it's worth. I'm paying them 20 million. Could be some dodgy deal you're doing under the hand. It's like, actually, I'm paying you for 20 million pounds worth of drugs, but here's a token piece of artwork, which isn't taxable, which is completely okay for me to give you a colossal amount of money, whatever. And it's this underworld that's gone on with art sales of like, you just say, here's, this has value.
Money laundering, basically, right? Money laundering.
Yeah, money laundering. But it's like a way to do that. So you could say it's a cashless system, but it's like, oh, what did you? Well, I gave them this because I bought this piece of art. So it's cool idea.
I feel like the thing we're touching on there is that actually the cashless or not doesn't really. It's just sort of almost semantics. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. Yeah, society will continue and it will. But then again, I think the government intervention of it will be far greater, obviously, because they can,
So they can track. We still have this kind of concept. Obviously, we're given it of like there's criminals on one side, and then there's the governing body on the other side, right? Obviously we all know that they're totally mixed, but it's like, all right, criminals would benefit from this, or criminals will be hit harder from the way we do money, and yet the government will have a benefit, or we'll have a benefit. Like it's all semantics, all mixed.
Yeah.
Like there's like the criminals are at the top as well. Like it doesn't say
Just some earn more money than the others.
Yeah, exactly. Just have top end criminals and low end.
Where you draw the line as well, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll get into the morality and ethics of that, maybe, but no, go on, Johnny.
There's one thing I want to say, just about like the idea of value and stuff. It was always the thing of like, oh man, was it the Spanish Inquisition? No, I can't remember. When they went to
nobody ever suspected.
When they went to South America and they started paying like, I'm going to muddle up my history. I would say Aztecs. Is that the classic one? They traded them gold for mirrors, and like we were like, oh man, they completely did them in because they didn't realize they had gold. It's like, yeah, but for them mirrors were like dope. It's just like, man, that's just a yellow rock. I don't care. Why do I care about a yellow rock? This mirror, I can see my face. This is huge. Before anything else, like, what a commodity to be able to see yourself, to look at yourself, dress yourself, do whatever, rather than having to look in like polished metal or water or something like that,
or a puddle.
Like, yeah, just a puddle. And like, so
we make it with a puddle. It was a real problem in there.
It's only with the idea of that. Oh, well, as soon as they get integrated into our society, they'll realize how valuable gold is. But if you don't integrate them, then actually it's just a fair trade for two items. And the Aztecs would be like, these guys want literal rocks. Like, why do you even care? They're just yellow. Yeah, cool, whatever, but they're rocks. And then, Spanish like, we're just giving them mirrors.
Oh, value is just so.
Yeah, so it's
that's kind of the root of it all.
Value is so
concept of it. It's so like I said, imagine the classic example of that is give someone a regular person, you say in the street, would you like a glass of water or this diamond worth millions of pounds? Everyone's going to say the diamond, right? No problem at all. Ask someone who's dying of thirst in the middle of a desert, give them the same question, exactly the same stuff. Which one are they going to go for? So it's all about described value.
Not to mention the timings, right? Like you offer, like, I don't know, Alistair, whatever phone you've got right now. Like I give you 10 grand for it. And you'd be like, yeah, sure. Go back in time, 5 years, if that. Your phone is worth like hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Like future technology, and then maybe you go into the future and it's worth nothing. I mean, or you can go too far into the past and you can't even charge it because what is electricity?
Yeah, this works for all of 12 hours and then it will.
The whole premise of this is how to make money with a time machine. That's the best way. I'm going to get back in time and sell my phone.
Actually, that's not.
I'm just going to get back in time.
What currency would have the most value throughout the longest period of time? It's got to be probably something like water. A hashtag, you should read the book June.
Yeah, I've got it on my tablet. It's ready there to read.
Yeah, you should. Well, if you get into it, it's really good. But like, water is, let's just say, quite important. And if you were time traveling and you used as much time as possible, I mean, it's perfectly plausible for people to come to our planet and steal all of our water, just if
That's scary.
it was as useful as it is to us as it is to them. Like,
It is,
imagine
yeah.
water-
I've read that it shouldn't really exist, right, in a lot of ways, and it kind of, it is a pretty phenomenal. And obviously, probably be wars in the future fought over it. Obviously, when it becomes fast gas and everything else. So yeah.
Also,
go on, guys.
Rango.
Pro tip: we're going to talk about Bitcoin, but actually, the best investment you can make: go fill up your bathtub with water. And,
never mind
sit on that
hiding
for a few thousand years. You'll be laughing.
Never mind hiding.
Make sure it doesn't evaporate though. Make sure it's not too hot. It might.
Yeah. Also, the film Rango. That's water as a commodity.
Wow, I actually hadn't thought of that, but you're right.
Rango's so good. It's up there with one of my top films.
Really? Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it, like the way they recorded the audio is they all acted it out in a studio. They all just they had like basic set. They were all walking through. There was mics around, so it wasn't just in a recording or booth. They were all together, all acting on side each other. So it's more natural noises and kind of stuff like that.
That's it.
Yeah,
okay. I've got a question then.
I've got mine.
Just to tie it back to
So
you
the
guys.
June, right?
DJ.
DUNE.
June. Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
What? Oh no. June DUNE. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about Django.
Right?
Django? Rango.
No,
Rango. Django.
I think June is in the month, and I was thinking that's a weird name for a book. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So yes, any of our listeners listening and we're keen on that recommendation of a book from Freddie, it's June, as in DUNE, rather than June.
Sorry.
And it'll be a film by the time you listen to this already.
American accent. Dune.
Them dunes, man. Dune.
So can you guys imagine within our lifetimes that you have to switch, like the world changes currency? That the world changes currency. Can you picture this?
Within our lifetimes, but I think it's anything goes with this kind of thing.
Do I believe? I don't know. I find it hard to believe there'll be a unified thing of something. Just at least the progression that we're on now, I feel it'll be hard to get anything unified.
I think based on how badly the euro actually works economically is not going to be, or the issues they have with the euro economically, I don't think that's, it wouldn't work at all with a global currency.
Especially with capitalism, I think to pay everyone the same amount of money, you can't effectively have capitalism properly. Can you?
Imagine explaining to an alien that pops down. I love taking things and like trying to imagine it as an alien concept, assuming that an alien can make sense of our logic. They're like, right, so a bottle of water, you have currency, right? Yeah. So a bottle of water in Venezuela and a bottle of water in Germany aren't the same value to you? Well, no, because Venezuela's like super poor, right? Yeah. So they it should be like a penny, whereas I guess in Germany, it should cost like two pounds or whatever it is. Yeah, it's just like if you really think about it, why the hell don't we have a universal currency? Like, we're all humans. We should all value things equally, no matter where you are. Just maybe, I guess, you'd have it a bit more expensive for water in a cold country because you don't need it as much as a hot country, or maybe vice versa. I don't know. Like, why is it that we have this concept that's like, oh no, it should be cheaper there because you guys are poor?
I think you're getting it the wrong way. I don't think it's cheaper because we think they're poor, therefore it's cheaper. It's cheaper because the structures are already in place that have made it so the price is just determined by the situation they're in. It's not like you don't go somewhere and say this is the price because of this. It's these are the situations that happen, therefore the price comes of it.
Yeah, because.
But then why not? The thing. Okay, assuming in the future, I'm not saying I agree with you. I'm just saying, in the future, if we have a maybe better transport, then and goods and services can be received anywhere and everywhere when they're needed. Surely that has to blanket kind of unify currency and the value of stuff, right?
I think it's something to do with supply and demand. Those two words.
But I think as well, do you like the reason why the UK didn't go to the euro when it joined the EU? Because like with language of who's going to be the one to choose what is, someone's like, I'm not going to have English as my main language. My language should be the main language. Who chooses? Who decides? And I think that's always going to be something stopping in the way of everyone's got to step aside for something else. And I feel at the moment, everyone's a bit too like, no, ours is the best way. One thing, who do you think is the most famous person in the world? Sorry, complete tangent. This is something I thought. Could it be like Tom Cruise? But it's like you got to think of all the most remote places. Could it be the Queen? Like, is it Steven Spielberg? You know, like who's the most famous, the most well known? Who's most known by everyone on the planet?
I'm gonna go with Jesus.
As in people who are alive. Sorry, people who are alive, or what?
I'm gonna say alive. Good shout. Yeah, any form of religion, to be honest, like God. It's the most well-known person alive currently, because it could be the Queen.
Be up there, yeah.
Are they known by name?
That's so easy for three British people to say, "Oh, it must be the Queen."
Because I think even random countries know about the British Empire and therefore that they still have a monarchy, and that there's a Queen, and they don't probably know her by name, but they just know the Queen of England. So maybe.
Again, you've got to think of sheer numbers in countries, because obviously I feel like most people in India probably be more likely than China probably does. But go on, Freddie, what were you going to say? Sorry, you kind of your audio went a bit dodgy.
Yeah, sorry, I thought it turns out my internet was super unstable. Oh, I can't remember now. Just that something about how difficult this is as a thing. Like, is it that you know their face if they walk somewhere, or is it that you know their name? Like, I know people's names, but I think I like Madonna or something, but I think if I walked past Madonna, I wouldn't notice. Is it their name?
So who's the most?
How much is the news? Obviously, yeah. And there'd probably be a decent argument to say that Donald Trump was, and in a little while, but he probably was most famous in the world for a bit.
I got to go with Trumpel. Actually, I think he's one of the only people that I would notice. I would hands down notice. So I saw his face so many times. I'm so crap with people.
He's been so international, because it's the same way that like people may know the Queen is because of just the British Empire, like X kind of thing. Of America is such a powerhouse. I don't know America thinks it's the center of the world kind of thing, but it just their news spreads, doesn't it?
Fun thing, just again a little side note, but what I always thought was really interesting, whenever you're in different countries, obviously we always see maps, right? In the UK, the UK is in the middle of the map. It turns out every country in the world does that. So map of the world in China, cut America in half so that they can put China in the middle of the map.
I love it.
Yeah. Also look up bad maps, because I mean neither of you, as far as I know, have ever been in space, right? I'm pretty sure.
I thought you were going to say to Spain, and I was like,
that's how
not near you ever to Spain. It's this really, really, really amazing place.
Early onset dementia from Freddie.
I've never been to space, no, Freddie.
No, so you haven't seen the Earth. Like, you don't know it's what do you call it? Not scale, but like the size of the different countries compared with each other, right?
Freddie's going to lead on to flat Earth, aren't you? Is that it?
Guys,
you haven't been to space.
Have you ever looked out the window? It's flat, okay? Like, come on. You're just being sheep. No, but like the size, like France is the largest country in Europe by size. Now, it's absolutely massive. I happen to have driven across it recently.
Oh, really? How long did that take you, Freddie?
So long. It's so big. Like, but in all our maps, anyway, in the UK, you like if you actually look at it, you're like, oh, England's about the same size as France.
England massively inflated our in size. Yeah, I think that's a long,
big
long
ego thing.
Like Africa's way bigger than it is on all maps, and
it's because cartography, isn't it? Because it's a sphere. Everything tries to make it look right, but
it's not.
Is it though? Is it a square? But there's a little map generator you can get, isn't it, where you can click to see the actual size and being like everything in the north or south is colossal.
Yeah.
There is basically a thing like it's but there is, I think there's twofold with that people genuinely change the size of their countries to like we definitely used to do that on maps to make, because England's so tiny that the UK is so tiny that you're like, oh yeah, we have to make that a bit bigger. That's
such a guy.
Embarrassed about that, guys. Can't be showing that one off on a map.
Good luck editing this episode, by the way. Are you going to cut all this out?
I know this isn't all cryptocurrency.
This is not a talk cryptocurrency, but we'll go with it. We'll go with it.
The last thing is that also places feel like you said about before. We talked about time. Like if you're doing a lot of stuff in a period of time, it feels short when you're doing it, but it's long when you look back. right? This actually works with places. Like a place is so dense when it's got so much going on within it that you think it's massive, but actually it could be a very small island, like England, for example. But I mean, the vastness of, I don't know, Algeria, and yet it's actually not got much in it when there's a large space between each town.
That's like the long short thing, isn't it? Of where it's like, it's because how much you see on the way.
There you go. We're going full circle to like a few episodes ago. I can't remember if we were talking about on the episode or just
traveling is also possibly a hobby. Come on now.
I've actually had some backlash from people who've listened to the first episode and been like, "What do you mean traveling's not a hobby?"
I
already had some feedback.
And it just like pops up, Johnny, just like, Alistair just like, yeah, but what did you say when you like? Did it say, oh, I'm going to go play football? Oh, I'm just going to go travel.
The problem we're immortalizing whatever we decided to say in that moment. So this is what we've signed up for, guys. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to pause so that we can actually vaguely, or at least bring it back into what we were talking about. So just some things to look up for next week. Obviously, I think there's enough gaps in our knowledge on cryptocurrency that we don't need to worry too much about the questions. We're going to, just basically let's research it a bit and learn a bit more about it and have more of an idea when we come back next week. And what will be a few seconds for you guys. Welcome back. We have had a week. We are back talking about Bitcoin. So the questions I posed to you last week basically were pretty open. What do we actually think about Bitcoin? What's in general, let's learn some stuff about it. Like, we don't want to make this a whole lecture on, there are better sources of information on this out there, but this is what we learned, what we thought was interesting about it. So yeah, over to you, Johnny. Let's take it away. So what was some things that you've learned this week you didn't know? When I was doing a bit,
as I sat down to start the research, I was like, right, let's look at some of the questions, because just to refresh my mind of what question was asked, because usually it's like two or three, and I was like, there's just a blank page, and it says like show notes 1, what is Bitcoin? It's empty.
Let's fill that knowledge.
Yeah. I definitely feel like that. Do you know, like, you're learning something, there's almost like a jumping off point of where you understand everything. It's like it just clicks, and it didn't fully click of exactly what I wanted to know.
That's so gutting. And there's a point where it just clicks, and it didn't.
And I'm just like,
the penny did not drop. It just sat there staring at me.
It's just like a tiny bit. Did you get? I think the biggest thing of I think it's meant to be like it's a peer-to-peer network. So
this is going to be
right. Videos helped more than general research.
I was going to say someone clearly didn't watch enough like hand-drawn or stop-animated videos on Bitcoin like I did. So to tease you, my beautiful, beautiful listeners, we're going to be talking about the history, potentially a little bit, the current uses, obviously to round off this just threesome, the future of Bitcoin and how it's not it itself, but what it has created, i.e. blockchain, for decentralizing the guns. Yeah.
Precisely.
So I thought, just to start off with a pop quiz that we've already started, is what year was it created?
I think we can all agree on 2008 or 9.
Definitely.
I had 2009 as a number in my head, but it was kind of. I think the important thing of that its place in history was it was born in the financial crisis. So it was kind of a way of this kind of life as it were, away from the traditional big money and traditional institutions. So yeah.
And what I found was that each time I was, this is all in really one video particularly that I'm going to talk about. Every time it says, yes, but what about this major flaw? And I'm like, you're right, what about this major flaw? And it's like, oh, this is how blockchain does it. Oh, okay. It's
the kind of the solving the Rubik's Cube is the analogy they often use. But it's basically that's what the hard processing power needs to be done to kind of for each block to make the transaction sort of real, and then or to basically agree upon within the network of all the computers doing it that this is the right transaction, and then add it to the chain, and then it becomes the ledger, as it were, which keeps track of all these, this is how it's all lodged. But then the reward they get for that is in Bitcoin. So the miners, as it were, they have to solve these things, and they get incrementally harder as time goes on to sort of count. Yeah. It's very future-proof, right? That's one thing I want to sort of touch on. I think the kind of how obviously this Satoshi, the sort of modern day enigma of, because people don't know who he really is, or who the people who are who made it far. It's kind of forward thinking, like linking it with gold and everything. I don't know. Do you want to touch on this a bit?
What the one thing which the bit that didn't click for me is talking about the mining, and again looking at quite a few videos of being like, it's like, well, what is Bitcoin mining? And it's like, well, there's only 21 million Bitcoins ever, and the fact of trying to put it like a gold, so you got a rare resource where it's eventually, and the act of mining initially is the only you get in a video which is only giving you like the summary, and it's like, I really need more of the depth, and it's like, so computers have to solve an equation, and this means they're able to get X amount of coins in X amount of time. But as more people try mining to make sure, they only wanted like a steady mining.
It's all balanced with inflation, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So the more miners that you have, the harder the equations, the harder it is to do, and the longer it takes to mine. So you're never going to suddenly get a huge influx. So suddenly all 21 million are done in like a year, and it's like, oh right, it's done now. Instead, it's trying to get that slow, steady progression. And
2140 is the year there'll be 21 million, and that's it basically.
This is one thing which I didn't get. Of like, it's meant to be, it says 21 million, and the idea is it's like what, 50 and is it every 4 years that they changes the amount you're able to mine or something?
Yeah, it halves the amount the miners get as a reward for solving these kind of things. It halves every 4 years. Yeah.
However, there's 18 million currently that have been mined, and I feel like that's like the majority of it already done, and there's still a
right. It's a depreciating curve that like takes forever to get to zero. That makes sense. In fact, it won't ever get to zero technically.
Yeah, right? So there's a big vein of gold, and you get the big chunks out first, and then you just kind of scraping away at the little bits, and you panning for gold rather than chunks of gold coming out.
But their value is, I mean, like it's all just this sexy ass trusting. I don't know why I'm saying sexy so much today. Like, it's just like the whole weird trust thing that made me trip out and realize that all money is just obviously trust. It's just numbers on a ledger.
Because you've seen this last time of like, if you look at a note, it says, the Bank of England certifies that they owe you £5 because of this bit of note, and it's like a trust thing. They're like, right, the bank said this is worth this, so if I go in, I don't need gold, this amount of gold to buy it. I can do a piece of paper instead and trust that I got it. And isn't meant to be this, is that it's like, well, how can you trust anyone? And it's the fact that everybody who has any Bitcoin is already in it. So it's kind of like I imagine you're in a town square and there's like, I don't know, a big pile of gold there. And it's like, everyone's always there looking at it. So it's like, well, once someone steals it, it's like, yeah, but everyone's there looking at it. So you can't steal it because everyone's there, rather than getting a security guard to look over it and pay them money to look at it. Everyone's already doing it anyway.
The thing that like, oh man, there's so much to go into. I don't know whether to go in towards the end or kind of the beginning of the explaining, but it's the fact that when I'll go at the end. So someone wants to join, like you want to join now, right? So you're like, hey guys, can I have, as Alistair said, a ledger, like a piece of paper with all of your names on, or account numbers, inverted commas, all of your names on, and how many Bitcoins you have. Which, first of all, I kind of want to, can you look at that thing? I guess we can. We can see who has the most. That's kind of cool, right? And then everyone has to give you a list. But the thing is the lists aren't going to be identical because there's like a time delay or something, right? So your computer just goes with the one that most people are using. And the idea is that it would take far too much computing power for someone to make one that's fake, that's like got a million copies of it. So you basically go on what everyone else has got. And then it just gets down into even more complicated stuff. I look at my notes once you get hold of this ledger. But do you mind if I attempt to like explain how it works?
Yeah. Right. So, quick question before Freddie goes.
It's worth like 50 grand at the moment.
£37,000 is one Bitcoin. So how do you get a coffee from a shop? I'm assuming that it's like, it's £1, and then it's like a percentage in pennies. Otherwise, it's like one coffee. I'll have one Bitcoin. Here you go.
They have.
You want half the shop?
It's called a Satoshi, and it's 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. And that's so it's actually more divisible than any other currency. So you can buy Bitcoin by the Satoshi, basically, which is obviously currently worth less than a penny or a dollar. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Freddie, you were going to explain about the ledger and how it all works in here. Give us the full breakdown.
So this is going to be, first of all, this is totally, I'm winging it. I haven't written enough notes for this. So any listeners who are going to like not listen to me and think I'm an idiot, which I am. And second of all, I just don't fully understand it. So here we go. You, Johnny. So let's go to Johnny because he's sat there. He has a Bitcoin. His account name is obviously super coded, and it's like X35. Yeah, X35281 blah 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 blah. But we're going to go with Johnny. So Johnny wants to spend a Bitcoin. Now he'll have a Bit wallet because everyone has a Bit wallet, and the Bit wallet is linked by a special key to your account. That's the name Johnny. Now you put your Bit wallet now makes a unique code using the key to oh man, I'm already losing my track here. That proves that Johnny sent it. That Johnny has sent this transaction of 1 Bitcoin for a very, very expensive hamburger. Now, everyone else can look at this transaction key and code and say, yes, definitely, Johnny was the one that made the transaction. But the problem is that doesn't say when the transaction was made. And that's where the pool comes in. That's why we have to have the pool where all the transactions go into pool. Computers randomly pick people out the pool, solve it, and put them in a list. Does that mean the transaction doesn't go through until someone solves it?
There you go. So Bitcoin transfer times can take as little as 10 minutes to hours to days to even more than a week because so it does vary at the moment. That is
yes. Okay, that solves my question. So that makes more sense. So yeah, you have your special wallet. The special wallet says like, okay, here, guy, here's a little special code that links with your account that says you paid this. Everyone checks it. Yeah, that code looks about right. Your account with the transaction you made with a special ending code that's unique each time. Other people do this. Well, obviously they don't, their computers do, and say, yeah, you made this transaction, that's all good. They can't steal any information by back coding it. You can't do that. You can just see that it was made by that person. And then until someone plops that out of the pool of all transactions in the world and solves it, you might not get that thing that you bought. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I think that's why very much at the moment it's very much an asset rather than a currency. Like no one's buying Bitcoin at the moment to go out and spend it on, well, a Tesla maybe, but unlikely. But yeah, I think did you guys look up Ethereum at all? And look into it?
First, I'll say apparently there's a shop. I think it's a coffee shop in Prague which only sells stuff in Bitcoin. It's the only way to get anything from it. And I feel like that's a bold move. Honestly, you're going to get customs just for the fact. No way, I can spend my Bitcoin here. And other things are being like, that's a risky move.
I mean, I'm assuming
the prices can change so fast. How would you?
Yeah.
At the time as you order it and then you've got the copy, the price has gone up and down by it.
Imagine someone walking in, be like, "Can I have a coffee?" Yeah. Do you have Bitcoin? No. Well, no then. I'm thirsty. No, get out.
You're our first customer.
They say like, can I have? I'll have a cappuccino and would you like some? No, would you like soy milk? No, I have normal. Okay, cool. And as you're buying it, then it's like, okay. No, I'm sorry. We're going to buy this coffee back off you. We've just seen the price change. We're keeping it.
That coffee's a lot more valuable than it was before.
Yeah. Bitcoin crashes or something like minus money, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know. Well, I've not heard of that, Johnny, but I think it might be an interesting business.
I'll say just before Ethereum, because I think this may relate a bit to it. It seems Bitcoin is more like a share or a stock than it is actually a currency. That is like people buying.
That's what I mean. It's more of an asset. It's closely linked to gold. If you think of it as online gold, that is the best analogy because it was actually designed to be very similar. It was, like I say about it being future-proof and everything, and it was designed to be a similar sort of scarcity almost and similar. It's obviously market cap's way lower at the moment and everything, but it's than gold. But no, it's in the future I think it's going. That's the best way to sort of.
Or in the future we'll have a cryptocurrency that unites the world, but might not necessarily be Bitcoin. But because I've seen when I looked up stuff, there are benefits to other cryptocurrencies that Bitcoin doesn't have. Like there's a benefit to Litecoin. I can't remember what benefit is. It's something like it's easier.
Well, all of them basically. Ethereum include obviously Ethereum's sort of the biggest altcoin if you like. So all of them are altcoins that are sort of not Bitcoins basically. But the advantage that they all have is that there's not a limited number, which obviously makes it more like money. Because obviously you think like fiat money, there's no limit to to how much money the government can print. How much money it's sensible to print, but there's no
Zimbabwe.
There's no hard cap.
I mean, they just Zimbabwe. They just kept printing money.
Exactly. Yeah, hyperinflation. We'll ride that train forever. Yeah. But yeah, so in terms of, I mean, we can go to that. I think the future of it and the kind of, like I said, the Ethereum and the kind of ride sharing stuff and all of the different ways it can actually be the practical use of it in the world are, I think, very exciting and very real, if you like. The key of it is it's still decentralized and it's still not fiat money. So it's still, the idea of it being on, say, a ride sharing app is a really good example. If it's just a case of, I will get you from A to B for this amount of money, and then you don't need to worry about any. There's no other fees that need to be happening. There's no other companies have to do anything. It's really good. The future of that is very exciting and very I think liberating for a lot of people potentially. The tax is an interesting point. I think at the moment there's no way to get have cryptocurrency without tax unless you can offset it against losses from previous years, but again, not much of a flex to be like, oh, I didn't pay tax this year because I lost so much money last year.
But it's sort of like, how do you, when you don't know who's who on it? I know you can there's ledgers and stuff, but how do you know it's tax? If you know what I mean? Because usually isn't say Bitcoin's anonymous, isn't it? I know it'll eventually link up, but there's no way to find out, kind of thing.
It's currently it's classed as a capital gain, so it's classed as investment, so you pay capital gains tax, which is effectively once any investment that you have, if it gains like a stock, for example, if it gains value once you realize the asset, so once you sell the stock, then it's taxable at that point. So,
but that's assuming
you have to pay
that you buy and sell the cryptocurrency, isn't it? So that's when it becomes into pounds. But if you only got rid of the pounds, then it's only cryptocurrency, and you never delve out of that. How do you tax it? I mean, this could be too much of a question that we don't know to answer.
This is the no idea yet. Welcome back to episode 3 of this one, because we realise we still don't know anything about it.
So much.
To be honest with you, no one really knows yet because
it's not big enough.
They aren't being used as currency in that way. So it's not really the laws for it haven't been laid because it's a new frontier as well. So yeah. But yeah, Freddie, I thought you haven't said anything in all of this.
I got 2 things that I was going to ask about that I don't understand because I googled it and I'm still not sure. Current currencies, they're all working with banks and stuff because we have a centralized system, i.e., a bank. We can go into debt. You can't go into debt with cryptocurrency. That I'm trying to think. Surely.
Definitely, what will just happen is you get people who just any crypto with any currency who give you a loan and then you're indebted to somebody. So rather than, but I see what you mean. It would probably have to, but where would it be alleged if you can't say there's no such thing as a minus value, for instance?
There's not, unless except for the time between transactions. I think it said that there may be a minus.
Most loan sharks.
If the solution to that then made more problems because if then if we then try and make it closer to the sort of system we have at the moment, does that then defeat the point of the whole idea of making it this new system? So I hadn't thought that.
I like this simple idea to be what happens if I run out of money? Well, the answer is don't be poor. just no, but I don't think you understand. I'm struggling now. Well, it doesn't work that way. That's just a big flaw.
We're going to abolish poverty by making it impossible to run out of money.
You're not allowed to be poor. You just die.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always a workaround in horrendously difficult situations when you have enough money, but when there's it doesn't really benefit us, so then we're not going to improve this situation for other people.
Yeah, it's just sad, isn't it?
I have one last point about Bitcoin, but I don't know if you want to say
please do, mate. Please do, yeah.
So, Alistair, you have Bitcoin.
I know. I heard this
less than 1 by quite a long way.
You're pretty poor there.
How long ago?
Die.
Story.
How long did I put it on the 1st of January 2021? So a little bit late.
What's the thought of this show? I know. I'm gonna do a show about Bitcoin. Better buy one.
And then
what? Buy a whole one, yeah.
Just one.
Do you watch the graph or something each day? You're like, oh, I've made.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. I do that. I mean, yeah. I think personally, as an investment, it's very fun because it's a very, very bumpy ride. But I think anyone who actually came to this episode looking for investment tips on Bitcoin, absolutely, you can lose it all in a way that you can't with other things. I personally think it's unlikely that you will. It's based on sort of the history of it and how much big money's been pumped into it now. I think that will make it, like, if you look at it short term, yeah, it might well go down to, I don't know, 15,000. It could drop by 50%, like 70%, very easily. And it could well do that. Obviously, there's a lot of stimulus checks go around the US at the moment, and obviously a lot of people that they're just getting that money for free and they don't actually need that much, so they're putting it into things. And obviously, Bitcoin's that so hot right now. So I think there is definitely a bubble aspect, but I think in the future it's not going anywhere. And I think
it's solid, isn't it?
It's a solid asset, and I think it also can be a life raft in a way that, like I said, just in general, first of all, investing is diversify your portfolio, right? So if you can, I think it's a very good idea to get some, but definitely do not put any more in than you can afford to lose, because you may very well lose all your Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's kind of thing. You only have it as a pot, which you just don't expect to use for however many years. And you don't.
If you want to do like dollar cost averaging with it over time, that's a really good idea. But
you reminding me of a thing about the saving thing and stimulus. I can't remember the exact number, so I'm going to go for the lowest number that I know of that I think it could be, and then assume that of, like, in the UK, because people are saving. Yeah, some people have been hugely affected by the pandemic. Other people have actually been able to furlough. They're not eating as much, not going out as much, not spending as much, so they're saving money. And it's definitely, I want to say, like, maybe 2 billion that the UK economy, the individuals have saved. Granted, some of that is the really rich people who have saved a colossal amount. Others, it is a case of, like, that is general. So at some point, when stuff goes back to normal, there's going to be not a flood. I think there will be, especially when pubs open. Geez. But I think there'll definitely be this big wave of money suddenly go in, and then I think it will be a relative amount of time which kind of it stays like that, and then it eventually dip down again. But yeah, there's money.
The moment with that I did read not too long ago was that the amount the government spent on, like, the amount the UK government has spent on furlough and just spend the pandemic basically cost us 400 billion. For that, that's a complete number you can't even get your head around at all. But one way to put it in vague perspective was that you could pay off every single person's student loan twice in the entire country and still have more money than Warren Buffett by the end of that. With 400 billion, it's a completely mental amount of money. But yeah, no.
Yeah, but the one thing about debts as well, about countries was it only recently, here's the thing about slavery, and that only recently so when people had to give up slaves, because when they abolished it, a lot of rich people would be like, well, I'm losing loads of money. You're telling me that my free workforce I now have to pay for. So what's the government going to do? Because they've just changed my business. So they had big payouts. And I think it was like 2000 and, I don't know why I looked at my watch. I think it was like 2019. It was really recent, or maybe 2010, 2020, I can't remember. They only just finished paying off those debts to the slavers from however many years ago. I was saying, like, how it's still relevant. We're still paying off the debts we did from years back, which is just mad. Yeah, and again, World War II, huge debts from that, stuff like that. And
the debts we paid to America, we only finished the noughties, I think it was.
At time of recording, the current, according to Google, which takes it from Coinbase, says that right now, one Bitcoin is worth 52,011 US dollars.
What's it in pounds? Because I took the recording at the start of the show and see if it's changed.
Yeah. Wait, hang on. Oh, God.
But I definitely think. Do you know, like, we used to have shillings and crowns and everything changed to the current currency now, and for a long time you try to figure out, well, how much is that worth in old money, effectively.
That's in the last hour. A peak, and the dip, its lowest was £37,122, and the highest was £37,347. So like £225. £225 difference. That's this hour, this week. Wow. So it's gone up over the course of the week quite a bit. This month gone up a lot, and in the last year, obviously. Woo! So yeah, it's gone pretty crazy.
Although, just to put some perspective on stuff, like, maybe I had to change a lot for me of money from euros to pounds. Right, I was changing. I was changing 3,000 euros, which was a big deal. I was like very excited about this, and because I I was looking at the exchange rate, and I was like, oh, I kind of need to do it right now because I need to send this money to sort some stuff out. And if I'd done it on Monday, as opposed to when I did it on Thursday, I would have 60 extra pounds. 60. Like, and I was like, oh, what? That's real money. That's like a good meal and a night out. Like, oh, that's just exchange rate euro to pound, which are both oldish ass currencies. So I can't imagine what Bitcoins do.
Yeah, very crazy.
I definitely think when moving to cryptocurrency would be the difficult part of like when we change from old money to new money, of people will still be trying to think of how much is that worth, but to just like, oh well, it used to be 20 quid, this is now 100. Like, what is the Bitcoin denomination?
Satoshis.
Yeah, let's say
Satoshis.
Yeah, let's say it's like 100 Satoshis. 100 Satoshis is actually worth 20 quid, so it gives you an idea. And it just takes that bit of time for people to like, no, you just shift over to, oh, that will get me this, or that will get me that. I guess.
It was, what was it? The price of gold is not flat by any means, but it's fairly stable by comparison. So I think that's something that may well come again in a long time. I mean, like I said, they're still mining Bitcoin until 2140. So
it'll be interesting, to see when it becomes an actual currency, we will use it as money rather than the investment, like you said. And when people start having to choose what they buy stuff in, because maybe people have their cryptocurrency amount, but maybe they're paid in cryptocurrencies. If companies realize that it's cheaper for them to pay people in cryptocurrency because of fees. Am I cutting out?
It's a boat. I think the FOMO that everyone's getting, don't want to miss out on it. I think the FOMO is definitely real. So
I definitely think as well, it'll put when it fully. This is something that's going to happen over so many years, so it's not really. It's going to be slow change, but there'll be so many jobs which aren't needed anymore. If you know what I mean. And it's like, oh, we don't need this whole industry because it's all effectively on a computer and it's all peer-to-peer, decentralized. So all those jobs and people that needed to be there aren't necessary anymore, which is a mad thought of like, I guess as well, when you reduce the amount of jobs, stuff needs to be worth less, I guess, because you like robots to do everything kind of thing, that utopia about you don't need currency technically because everything's made.
But
currency be likes.
Yeah.
like.
Imagine a potential, just think about this, where you can choose if you want to work or not. And people would say, oh, well, I wouldn't choose it. But I think I would choose to have a job that I got satisfaction from and I enjoyed. It'd be quite cool if it became more like people can choose to go into work and it's a noble thing to do, and people who do it enjoy it and probably pass that down to their kids, maybe that want to do stuff. But if you don't want to do anything, it's okay. And maybe that would make a two-class dystopian future.
See, I definitely think this will be based on parenting. And I only say that because it's kind of like we say this because when people retire, usually they get a job in they volunteer, they do whatever, they get a little consultancy thing, whatever. It's because I've been doing this so many years, I can't just not work. I need to keep myself busy. But if kids from the get-go and like new generation never learn to have work 9 to 5, I guess it would end up just being that entertainment becomes your new work or whatever. Or maybe that's it. You're like, oh, entertainment's 9 to 5.
Inside VR.
I work at night because that's the relaxing thing.
I chop down trees for a living, but they're all virtual.
I mean, that's the thing as well, that this is a real thing that people do in certain science. Well, it's science, but it's for everyone. If they're trying to crack, let's say, the shape of molecule needs to be a good drug, right? Like, yes, you can have a computer just randomly hack at it, but you can also make a game people play that's just a game but actually solves a problem for a computer. That could also be a future where we're playing games.
The one that makes me laugh is Farm Simulator, right? Is a wildly popular game where you just do like what we did as humans thousands and thousands of years ago. Just farming. Also, I think it's with combine harvesters, so maybe not thousands of years ago, but you know what I mean. Like, it's bizarre.
Yeah. But one thing I'm thinking of, say, do you like Ready Player One? The idea of cryptocurrency, but actually, rather than being about something which is whatever, it's an in-game currency, and then it gets so popular that everybody's always in game that you end up having jobs because someone's like, actually, I've got loads because I've bought loads in the real world. I will pay somebody to do something for me in game, and with this cryptocurrency effectively. And then that could be one way. It's not even deliberate in the way that like we're trying to make a currency. It's like it's almost like accidental. That's like, oh, actually no.
But then you've got the issues of whoever makes the game though. If it's a Facebook run or if it's whoever actually owns the game, then they are effectively the central bank, right? They can do whatever they want with the currency.
Yeah, true, yeah.
So I don't know, it's a dodgy,
but yeah, I guess the idea of cryptocurrency, which isn't decentralized, it's just a case of it. Well, a virtual currency, I'd say. Yeah. But yeah, cool thought.
I said it's all about what people think has value, and then that's
It's like
if you believe it has value, then it does. Yeah. So
golden mirrors.
That's
Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of No Idea Yet. If you've got any thoughts about anything we should do in the future, don't hesitate to email us at noideapodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We are No Idea Yet Podcast. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you, or you'll hear us next week.
Love you, bye.
You can see us waving, right?